What if I told you that a 75-year-old man from 4,000 years ago holds the secret to transforming your daily struggles into stepping stones of faith? Abraham wasn't just a biblical character, he was a masterclass in trusting God through uncertainty. And his story contains 5 powerful lessons that can revolutionize how you handle everything from Monday morning anxiety to life-changing decisions. Here's what most people miss. Abraham's faith wasn't a one-time event. It was a daily practice of choosing trust over fear, obedience over comfort, and God's promises over visible circumstances. Today, we're uncovering these 5 transformative lessons that turned an ordinary man into the father of faith, and showing you exactly how to apply them to your everyday life. If you're ready to discover practical ways to trust God like Abraham did, not just in crisis moments, but every single day. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell because these 5 lessons will change how you approach every challenge you face. Chapter 1. The History of Abraham. Lesson 1. Leave your comfort zone when God calls. Abraham's journey began with the most uncomfortable command imaginable. Leave your country, your people, and your father's household. This wasn't just about geography. God was asking Abraham to abandon his entire identity, his financial security, and his social network. In today's terms, imagine quitting your job, selling your house, and moving to a foreign country without knowing the language, the culture, or even your final destination. Yet, Abraham packed up and left, teaching us that God's calling often requires us to step away from what feels safe and familiar. Lesson 2. Trust God's timing, not your timeline. After God promised Abraham descendants as numerous as the stars, 25 years passed before Isaac was born. 25 years of waiting, wondering, and sometimes wavering. Abraham learned that God's promises aren't bound by human schedules. He discovered what every believer must learn. Divine timing is perfect timing, even when it doesn't align with our expectations. This lesson transforms how we handle delayed prayers, unanswered questions, and seasons of waiting. Lesson 3. Act on faith, even when it doesn't make sense. The ultimate test came when God asked Abraham to sacrifice Isaac, the very son through whom all God's promises were supposed to be fulfilled. Logic screamed, no. But Abraham chose obedience over understanding. He built the altar, bound his son, and raised the knife, demonstrating that true faith acts on God's word, even when circumstances seem to contradict his promises. This wasn't blind faith. It was faith that trusted God's character more than human reasoning. But Abraham's daily faith wasn't just about dramatic moments. It was built through ordinary choices that shaped his extraordinary trust. Chapter 2. Faith in Real Life. When everything seems uncertain. Lesson 4. Practice daily surrender in small things. Abraham didn't develop mountain-moving faith overnight. He built it through daily decisions to trust God in ordinary circumstances. When famine struck Canaan, he had to choose between panic and prayer. When conflicts arose with his nephew Lot, he chose peace over personal advantage. These weren't headline-worthy moments, but they were faith-building exercises that prepared him for greater tests. Modern believers can apply this same principle by surrendering daily worries to God, your commute, your finances, your relationships, your health concerns. Consider Jennifer, a single mother who applies Abraham's lesson 4 every morning. Before checking her phone or starting her coffee, she spends 5 minutes surrendering her day to God, her children's safety, her work deadlines, her financial concerns. She says, I learned that faith isn't just for Sunday mornings or crisis moments. It's a daily muscle that gets stronger with exercise. When her son was diagnosed with learning disabilities, Jennifer's daily practice of surrender had already trained her heart to trust God's plan rather than panic about the future. Lesson 5. Remember God's faithfulness in past difficulties. Throughout his journey, Abraham built altars to commemorate God's faithfulness. These weren't just religious rituals, they were faith anchors, physical reminders of God's past provision that strengthened his trust for future challenges. When facing the impossible command to sacrifice Isaac, Abraham could look back at decades of God's faithfulness and choose trust over terror. Every believer needs these altar moments, specific memories of God's provision that become foundations for future faith. But Abraham's example isn't the only one that demonstrates this daily trust. The saints throughout history have shown us that this kind of faith produces extraordinary results. Chapter 3. Testimony of Saint Faustina. Saint Faustina Kowalska embodied all 5 of Abraham's lessons in her 20th century Polish convent. Like Abraham leaving Ur, she left her family's farm to follow God's call to religious life. Like Abraham waiting for Isaac, she endured years of spiritual dryness while trusting God's timeline. Like Abraham on Mount Moriah, she obeyed God's seemingly impossible request to spread devotion to divine mercy, even when church authorities questioned her sanity. But here's where Faustina's story becomes especially relevant to daily faith. She practiced Lesson 4, daily surrender, with extraordinary consistency. Her diary reveals that she offered every mundane task to God, from washing dishes to caring for sick sisters. She wrote, "I will change all my works, even the most ordinary ones, into prayers." When tuberculosis ravaged her body and spiritual darkness clouded her soul, she applied Lesson 5 by remembering Jesus' past faithfulness, writing "Jesus, I trust in you" over 300 times in her diary. Faustina's canonization in the year 2000 proved that her trust wasn't misplaced. The Divine Mercy devotion she promoted now reaches millions worldwide, and her feast day, Divine Mercy Sunday, is celebrated throughout the Catholic Church for those seeking to deepen their understanding of saints like Faustina and their powerful daily practices of faith. Our ebook, 50 Saints' Stories and Prayers for Divine Intervention, contains practical wisdom from saints who mastered the art of daily trust. You can find it in our store below. But knowing these lessons and living them are 2 different challenges, which brings us to the practical steps every believer can take. Chapter 4. Practical Application. Implementing Abraham's 5 lessons requires specific daily practices that transform abstract faith into concrete action. For Lesson 1, leaving your comfort zone. Start small. Say yes to opportunities that stretch you, even if they feel uncomfortable. Volunteer for a challenging project at work. Reach out to someone who needs encouragement, or take a step toward a dream you've been postponing. Abraham's willingness to leave Ur began with his willingness to hear God's voice above his own fears. For Lessons 2 and 3, trusting God's timing and acting on faith, create what I call faith checkpoints. When facing decisions, ask yourself, what would someone with Abraham-like faith do here? Then do that thing, even if the outcome isn't guaranteed. This might mean having a difficult conversation you've been avoiding, applying for a position that seems beyond your qualifications, or choosing forgiveness when you'd rather hold a grudge. Faith grows through exercise, not through study alone. For Lessons 4 and 5, daily surrender and remembering God's faithfulness, establish morning and evening rituals. Begin each day by consciously placing your concerns in God's hands, and end each day by identifying one way God showed his faithfulness. Keep a faith journal where you record both your prayers and God's answers. This creates the same kind of altar moments that strengthened Abraham's trust. The saints understood that extraordinary faith is built through ordinary faithfulness, day after day, choice after choice. And when we truly embrace this daily practice of trust, something remarkable happens to our entire perspective on life's challenges. Conclusion: Abraham's 5 lessons aren't just ancient wisdom. They're a daily roadmap for modern believers who want to experience unshakable trust in God. Leaving your comfort zone when God calls, trusting his timing over your timeline, acting on faith when it doesn't make sense, practicing daily surrender in small things, and remembering God's past faithfulness. These aren't one-time decisions, but daily choices that compound into extraordinary faith. Abraham didn't become the father of faith through a single moment of trust. He earned that title through thousands of daily decisions to choose God's way over his own understanding. The beautiful truth is that God isn't asking you to have Abraham's faith immediately. He's inviting you to start where Abraham started, with one step of trust followed by another. Maybe today that means surrendering a worry you've been carrying. Maybe it means taking action on something God has been prompting you to do. Or maybe it's simply choosing to trust His timing in a situation that's been frustrating you. Every small act of faith matters to God, and every daily choice to trust Him builds the kind of unshakable confidence that can handle life's greatest storms. Your journey of daily trust starts now. Subscribe to join thousands of believers who are discovering what it means to live with Abraham-like faith every single day, and share in the comments below which of these 5 lessons you most need to apply in your life right now. Your commitment to daily trust might be exactly the encouragement someone else needs to take their next step of faith.